Around. Oh. Right, I'm hoping you can see that in full screen now. Yeah. Is that okay, Alan? Can you thumb up me? Yeah.
It's just loading still. One moment.
Okay. T-Pass Tower's been a bit slow this morning. Are we?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to? It's a bit wonky on our end. Do you want to stop sharing and reshare?
Okay. Well, there's a first. Any joy this time?
Yeah, but you just got to flip around so I see speaker's view.
All right. Okay. Okay, is
Perfect.
that right? Is it? Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Right. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for being patient, and welcome to our International Tenants Day, or as we'd say in Wales, Rhwngwladol Tenantiaid. Sorry, I got that wrong there. Um, Thank you for coming. It's the first one we've done for quite a long time, and we just felt it was um, something we wanted to be part of. I'm David Wilson. If you're not familiar with me, there's my email. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and there's IT Pass on different social medias and things like that. Should you want to get in touch afterwards, I'd love to hear from you. I also, before we start, want to thank our part funders, Welsh Government part funders. We're very grateful for that. And to Wales and West, who are our main sponsor, and Pobble Group, who sponsors our tenant voice work. So thank you to you three. You make our work possible. Um, if you're not familiar, because this is maybe in Wales, we haven't done a lot with International Tenants Day in the past. The International Union of Tenants is a non-governmental, non-profit membership organization. I'm not going to read all that out now, but it has 74 members across the globe, including Brazil and Australia and all sorts of places. And we're obviously, as TBAS Cymru, we're a member and we liaise with them. And they have this International Tenants Day since 1986, and we felt it was right to be part of that. Do look at their website, although some of the sections on there, I had hair the last time that website was updated. It doesn't get, there's a limited resource, and they're still working on that at the moment. But they are great. Some of it, Dan is the Secretary General there, and he's just wonderful. We went to him and said, we'd like to do something, and he right away found us some speakers and helped us set up this event. He did want to be at this event, but Portugal got in first, and he's actually flown to Portugal for an event there. So we'll try and get him next time. Really experienced person coordinating the International Union of Tenants. Um, and I just want to say also, we reached out to politicians um, and to the cross-party housing group that exists in the Welsh Parliament, the Senedd, and told them about this, and we had some correspondence. Eleanor spoke with them all, and the minister, or we're meant to call it cabinet secretary these days, that's the posh word for the housing minister. Um, she sent us this message. I won't do them all now because we want to get going, but they're all on social media, you'll see. But yeah, the minister recognising International Tenants Day, same with our chair, Emma Parcells, a tenant, and a tireless campaigner for tenants. And I say we spoke about this event. She was really looking forward. She's working today, but very much wanted to be here. And we also spoke to people from the cross-party housing group. So Sian Gwenllian there is the chair and represents Plaid Cymru. And Mike Hedges is on there representing the Labour Party. Mike himself been involved in housing for years and years. And as he points out, came from a council house himself. And the same, Mark Isherwood for the Conservative Party. Um, Done a lot with tenant disability rights and things like that over the years. And Jane Dodds for the Liberal Democrats Party. Again, um, pleased to support and be part of this day. So I say I think there's a lot of four different political parties there wanting to and recognising International Tenants Day. And I also want to mention at 3 o'clock today we've got an announcement on YouTube for those of you who follow YouTube. We might be able to put a link in for what's called the link to it. Um, and at 3 o'clock today, we're going to announce it on Tenant Voice and Tenant Voice in Wales. So please do tune in for that. I also want to mention quickly, if you are a tenant in Wales, I know we've got guests from around the UK and Europe today, but we do something called Tenant Pulse. It's a chance for you once a year to give your view on what matters to you in housing, what really matters to you, one thing you'd want to change in your community, one thing to change in your home. And it's really important. The minister sees it, senior Welsh government officials see it, and it really helps shape your voice is with decision makers. So it's open for another week or so. I'm sure Alan will be putting it in the chat somewhere. And final one, I just want to mention our National Tenant Engagement Conference is in a month's time. Hopefully, we'll see many of you there who are based in Wales. So let's get on with this. That's what you're here for, not for me. We've got three great speakers today. As I'm very grateful for the IUT for arranging this for us. I think Carl got the short straw. Carl Johan is going to go first. Um, Carl is the chief negotiator at the Swedish Union of Tenants. I'm sure he will talk about what that is, but I know it's a big organization. I think it's 500,000 members and negotiate rents for about 3 million tenants in Sweden. And so, as a great experienced advocate and chief negotiator, which I think I'm looking forward to hearing from. Maya is here as well, from North Macedonia, president of the Housing and Tenant Organization, representing tenants in North Macedonia. And Dave, a tenant and is chair of supporting communities in Northern Ireland. Supporting communities, it's not exacting, but it's probably our closest equivalent in Northern Ireland of TPAS Cymru. And he's a tenant himself, and he'll be talking about his story and his journey in tenant activism and tenant representation. So I'm going to come off here, if that's okay, and hand over to Carl Johan Bergström, Chief Negotiator at the Swedish Union of Tenants.
Thank you. Very nice to be here. Dan, who is working at the IUT, who you mentioned earlier, is a former colleague of mine. So I'll talk to him about the website
I'm sorry, yes,
and updating the website.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a small presentation which I'm gonna try to share with you. I think I'll go through it first, and then it's you're welcome to have if you have questions or something like that. I'm a chief negotiator in Sweden for the Swedish Union of Tenants. I've been working the last 15 years as in different roles, and my role now is to coordinate. We have about 150 professional negotiators around Sweden who is engaging in negotiations with landlords, and we have around 2,000 what's it called, NGOs, volunteers who also are part of those negotiations, and that's also my role to coordinate all of this. But I'll try to start from the beginning and not. We started a little bit before my time, so. David, if you would like to just affirm that there is a presentation up. I think someone would speak up if you don't see anything. Yes. Okay. So the Swedish Union of Tenants, we was founded in 1917. At that time, there were almost no rights, or there were no rights for tenants. If you rented an apartment, it was often a small one-room apartment which you shared with maybe a large family or a group of workers that you worked in the factory with. There was also this kind of housing, which is a gymnastics hall, but which we were forced to use as a living space instead of a gymnastics hall. So it was a dire time. Many times your employer was also your landlord. If you lost your job, you also lost your apartment. There were no rights to speak of. Rents were high and living standards were poor. And from this frustration and with lessons taken from the growing unions on the labor market came the first tenant organizations. And when we speak there were no rights, this is a picture from an eviction. If the landlord didn't want you there, they could evict you. You had no rights at all. So this was the frustration that built this union of tenants. And as David said, we're big. I saw a trailer for this event earlier this week, and he also said we're massive. And yeah, we are quite massive as an organization. We're not a big country. We in Sweden we have around 10 million people living, but out of those 10 million people, 3 million are tenants and are renting their apartments. Around 1,500 apartments, around 1.5 million apartments, and mostly professional landlords. There are communal landlords, municipal landlords, and private landlords, but they are professional. We have a small group of landlords that are non-professional landlords. And we have the collective bargaining system, which means that every increase in rent, the first rent which you pay as a tenant, but also every increase in rent has to be negotiated with the Swedish Union of Tenants. So you don't have to sit by yourself as a tenant, opposed to your landlord and try to negotiate your rent. We negotiate the rents as a union in the labor market. You have an possibility if you think that you're as a tenant could do better, you can step off the system and choose to negotiate yourself. But the around 95% of every apartment that you can rent in Sweden is negotiated by us. We don't have an exclusivity. You could form another organization and do the same thing, but we are almost the only organization in Sweden who does this. There are also tenancy rights. This started with the fact that you could be evicted on any cause. And above all, you could, if the landlord raised the rent, yeah, well, that could be a problem in itself to be able to pay the rent, and you were evicted by that cause. So that's the first right, that you don't have to be evicted because the rents are too high. We make sure of that. So more rights is that you have a right to a certain kind of standard. You have to have an oven, a fridge, all of that. Yeah, you have ground rights of what is supposed to be in an apartment. And when we negotiate, the same kind of apartment has to have the same kind of rent. If you have a certain kind of standard, a new bathroom or a new kitchen, you should have the same rent as another apartment that has the same kind of standard. And if you have a low standard, you have a low rent. If you have a high standard, you have a higher rent. If your apartment is in a more wanted area of the city, it's higher. If it's in an area that is not so sought after, it's a lower rent. And our goals as a union of tenants is rights to housing. We yeah, housing is a human right, and that's why more homes needs to be built, and they need to be built in a sustainable way. We also have a goal of affordable housing. Both tenants and society benefits from reasonable rent rates. And we have a goal of enjoyable housing. There is a need to empower tenants and raise the status of tenancy rights to make it an attractive form of housing for all. It's not just the owned housing that's more attractive or better to live in. The rented apartments are just as equal in that way. So this all probably sounds sort of good, maybe in contrast to other countries, but we do have challenges also. Maybe the biggest challenge and the challenge that has been ongoing since the start of our organization is the rent setting system. Which kind of rent setting system should we have? There has been a constant struggle between market rents and rent control. And since the 60s and 70s, we have what's called the utility value system, which is a system which I said earlier, the qualities in your apartment and in your building and in the area surrounding it. That what's sets the rent. So good qualities, higher rent, low qualities, lower rent. But it's a constant struggle, and this is an ideological question also, because the free market is strong, and this is something that's kind of strange, both in Sweden, but definitely in the rest of the world to have it this way. So there are constant attacks on the system and efforts to try to break the system down. I know social housing. You had a picture before, David, of how many people lived in social housing in Wales. We consider social housing a problem in Sweden. We don't want social housing, and we almost don't have social housing. And why we consider it a problem, yeah, well, that's because when you have this kind of utility values system, uh, there are affordable housings. Uh, the market system that leads to uncontrolled rents and apartments that you can't afford, and therefore social housing is a necessity for the government or the city to work with. But if you don't have that, if you have affordable housing for everyone, then you don't need social housing. So that's why we see social housing as sort of a problem. We understand that you have to have it in certain countries, but we don't think it's the right way for Sweden to go forward. Uh, we also have challenges that's regarding affordable housing is a good thing. And of course, if there were housing for everyone, we wouldn't have a problem at all. But we have, like every country in the world, probably a lack of housing. We don't build nearly enough new apartments, and the apartments that are being built are too expensive. And it's hard to everyone to rent those newly built apartments. So we have strong needs of better support from the government. We haven't had that for a while. There needs to be built more apartments. And we don't think the free market is the only solution, which it is right now. Even with this utility value system on the rent side, the building of apartments are a free market. And then the organization, how do we do this? I mentioned earlier that I try to organize or coordinate our organization in regards of the negotiation part. This is a picture of Sweden. You don't have to worry about the names on the side there. Those are our regions. But you also mentioned then that we are around 600,000. We are closing to 600,000 members. We have 9,000 elected members who are the base of our organization. What they decide, we do. So um, as an employee, I can't really decide what to do. I go by the what's decided by the electeds. And then we have 1,200 local unions of tenants, which is in almost every city and many in every city in Sweden. That's supposed to catch up and tell us what it's like to live in a certain building or in a certain area. So we have the arguments to go into negotiation with. So those are our source of knowledge. And then in total, our organization has 900 employees, and around 200 of those are working only with negotiations, administrations, or strictly negotiations with landlords. Uh, yeah, that's the presentation and the way we work in Sweden. I hope
Thank
that
you.
was some sort of overview of how we do it.
I think that was an excellent overview in terms of a completely different approach. And I can see Healy and a couple of us going, whoa, it's a bit different, isn't it? 900 employees, all that amazing cooperative and working as a tenant union. It's incredible what you're achieving there. Um, I'm going to pause for a minute because I notice as well as people going, oh, no social housing, but I get the a well-regulated, well-managed private sector. I think there'll be a few people having questions about that later when we get to it. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the next speaker, and then I think we can then have some collective questions to them all, if that's okay. I just want to know, Eleanor, has Maya arrived? I can't see her.
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Yes,
Sorry, there you are. Sorry, I couldn't see you. Sorry.
yes.
Um,
Thank you, David.
Brilliant.
First, thank you for the honor being here as a speaker and sharing the story from North Macedonia and celebrate today International Tenants Day and just to motivate ourselves to work more harder and towards improving tenants' rights and tenants' lives. I'm representing housing and tenants organization in Macedonia. I'm leading the organization, and it started as a very interesting story. And our partners from Swedish Union of Tenants help us a lot into developing the organization and actually moving very fast. If it wasn't for them, we will be maybe a bit slow on the way. We are existing now for
Hiya.
3 years.
Just you're a bit quiet. I don't know if you can turn your speaker up or anything. It's just a bit quiet. Sorry.
Oh, can you hear me now better?
A little bit better, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Maybe it's my computer, the microphone, my computer.
Sorry.
Yes. So, yes, it's the organization is established 3 years ago, and there was no organization, no association representing and working for tenants' rights. And we started as a small group of tenants. Actually, we were all five women tenants. We shared the same problems, the same challenges, and we, together with the Swedish Union of Tenants, decided to work on this field in the country. When we started to work, we saw that this area is absolutely neglected, and we started to become aware of some of the problems that we were also not aware that they are serious, like legal lease agreements. I'm a tenant for over 21 years now, and I had only 2 years with legal lease agreement. By legal, I mean the landlord is paying taxes and I'm reported in the taxation office. So the other years were completely, nobody knew that I was living here, working, and just because of the reason that the tenant always wants to have more affordable housing and the landlord wants to take more money. But where there is not formal contract where you are not obligated contract where you actually just put the signature, but it's not valued as a legal document. So the in general, North Macedonia is a very small country. Not just our organization. I want just for you. I don't know how much you know about Macedonia, but it's a very small country. We are 1,800,000 from the last census, and unfortunately going down because of the fast migration of young people, particularly. Yeah. And previously, in the past, housing was considered as a social category, but then it moved to the market category, market value. And since we have the housing law in adopted housing law in 1998, we have systemized the housing. But the housing law has been through a lot of changes over the years, and currently there is a working group to improve the housing system. But then we are also advocating for tenants' rights there. We are together with the Regulatory Housing Commission to improve tenants' rights in the law, because there's no there are many things lacking in the protection side of tenants. And we as association, first discovered these problems because nobody was speaking. We are very loud when it comes to the legal lease agreements, because we could not manage to find how many tenants do we have in the country, because we were five. We know maybe 50 around us that were living under rent. No one of them had legal lease agreement. And I'm speaking when we started forming the organization. And we did first the research on map the situation, and then we started to understand how can we change the situation. And we first the tenants were very afraid to approach and share their problems because they were thinking they're going to have problems with the landlord, or that somebody will chase them with what they say that can be used against them, and so on. And this was a first challenging road that we passed, and suddenly they started to look at us as someone who can help them. We opened free legal support for our members. We have around 200 members now. It's very modest. We cannot even dream to compare with Sweden, but we are on our way, because first they have to get to develop trust between the members and the tenants, to see that we are really working to improve the situation, to help them. And this last year we started with the free legal support, and we also started to open many different problems that they face, that we yeah, it's just like opening a Pandora box, and you in the Balkan, you have to be very creative when you want to change some situation that has been for a long time. And this is what has put the organization as profiled as somebody who is working on tenants' rights, because people were not even thinking of this. What tenants, what housing, they understand. But when we started to present and work a lot with a lot of research that we did, a lot of stakeholders meeting, and we had one last year with the government, because we wanted to change the housing law and put tenants' rights there. And we are lobbying now to have new housing strategy. We don't have a housing strategy for 12 years. You can imagine, like, they don't have even follow up from the last one. So we get very nice collaboration with the regulatory housing regulatory commission, and they are now we are signing MOU for them to our initiation to put it on the ministry level, so they can start working on opening a road for the new housing strategy. And I don't want to speak about a lot of the problems, but the problems are the thing that really helped us profile as an organization as well, because we discovered so many things, from not just the corruption with avoiding taxation, which is it's a criminal charge for the landlord, and also it was we discovered a lot of the things, and also for the landlords, that in order to save money, they also lost the money if there was damages in the apartment. The tenants could not rely on the landlord if there was some reparations in the apartment, and so on. And we also went further from last end of last year. We did a research on social housing. I know that what the colleague said from Sweden, the social housing is something that they avoid, and I completely agree. It should be affordable, accessible housing for all. But since we are quite far from going very strong as a country economically and in social aspect, tenants are also the ones who are in social housing here. They pay a smaller amount of fee, but when they were the first who asked us for free legal support from our side, and we discovered that when we went to the general manager, and there was a association, it's a state association, but they are regulating all the social housing, and they were afraid. We sent a special letter to them asking for help and renovation to one of the families where they have children, and there was a very bad conditions in the apartment, and they were afraid. They gathered all the team and they said, who are you? We were thinking then it's going to be social unrest if one person demands this, and what will we do if everybody's asking this? And they were complaining that they don't have yearly budget, so in their yearly planning they put a very small amount for helping the tenants, like not just maintaining, reparation and making the conditions in the apartment decent. So this is one of the things also that we want to add in the strategy, and also in the housing law. So it's a bit of struggle this year, because we had change of government, and we have from left-wing government, now we are right-wing government, and we want to see how they will approach the housing. For us is we want to build a relationship in order to achieve our goal. And they seem to listen now, but we see what we will do, what will happen with the housing strategy. And I'm focused more on the tenants' rights, but they are also majority of them are young people, and we have huge problem for the young people because the state doesn't have public housing or separate models for housing for different type of groups according to their needs. So when a young person is finishing education, is either needs to go back living in the with the parents, which it does. Here we have quite extended period for young people living with their parents, and or you have to collect two, three roommates to continue working, and then when you start to get salary, and then you start to be more independent. So they decide more often to go to Germany, to go to Sweden, to work, to go to other countries. Maybe now they are more looking at Slovenia and Croatia. It's closer to North Macedonia. And this is the harsh reality. So we were also advocating, and we are advocating a lot for these models that are sort custom made for different type of needs of a group. Either it's vulnerable families or youth people or any other category that we can fit. We have Macedonia has 86% ownership of apartments. So yes, it's the mentality and cultural thing, I have to say, in most of the Balkan countries, that you need to own your home. If you don't have a home on your name or in the family, it's like you don't exist. And this is something very slowly changing because you know, they actually the rental market is increasing, but also, yeah, just to mention that during the pandemic we had more than 30%, 35% increase of the rent, which is crazy, even more. I could say 40% even very realistic. And from apartments that were 150 euro, 200, now you have 400, 350. And the most, the one that are central that went into 700. And you can imagine the average salary in Macedonia is between 600 euros. I'm speaking about the average. The minimum is 300. Yes. So I'm trying to give you an overview on also on the country and also what we as organization have done so far. And for us, because we are unique, nobody is working on tenants' rights in the country. They really start to listen now, and we engage a lot of municipalities. Now we are working together with the Swedish Union of Tenants to bring a know-how into North Macedonia in the way how to improve the situation. We need we could not find even statistic, as I mentioned. We ask for each municipality to deliver us how many tenants they have, how many rented apartments they have in each municipality. Some of them said nobody asked this. Why you need this? They didn't give us. One of the municipalities, the biggest municipality in Skopje, in the capital, they said we have 5 for 2022. We cannot find other years. I said, how it's possible? And then they put us in the state statistical offices, and then they said we don't track records on these contracts. You need to go to the central registry and cadastre. So then when they went there, they give us just an amount like 4,000 for rents. And we said half of these or maybe more are offices. And we do, and now we are trying to negotiate with them to give us segregated data. And we're gonna have after 3 years final numbers how many tenants we have. Yes. And I hope I didn't take a lot of the time, but just to for you, I would share your presentation, but I wanted to just for you to feel and to understand. It's a different perspective than European countries. We really want so much to be part of the EU, and also to work with the European countries. And but still, there is a lot of things as mentioned. Corruption is one of the things that we are working on, but you know there are bigger players that need to clean the road. So hopefully we're gonna have questions and discussions. So
Yes.
thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. And I think what you're achieving there, when you were saying, oh, there's only 200 of us, there was 5 of you at one point, and now there's 200, isn't there? you don't suddenly go from that to Carl Johan's situation overnight, do you? They're 100 years in the making or so, wasn't it? Close enough. So big respect. I can speak, I think, for many of you here, you know, trying to find out how many tenants, how many people have got a contract, or I can't remember the term you used, but a legal contract. You know, you're really at the front doing the fight, aren't you? So big respect. And we'll come to some questions in a minute. Um, Thank you. And maybe from just hear from Dave next. Dave Mayer as I said, he's a tenant and chair of the sporting communities in Northern Ireland. Tenant activist, and I think he's up next. And then we can do some questions because we've got very different speakers here. I'm loving this so far. It's a nice variety of different stories here. So thank you. Take you off the spotlight. Over to you, Dave, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. Trónóna mai. Dobro poplatne. I'm not sure about my Swedish. Good after middag and Prinhan da. I'm not sure about my Welsh either, but there you go. Anyway, I have my sensible side, and that's Healy, who is doing the slides and has done a huge amount of work on this. In fact, virtually all of the work on it for me. But I'll just do a quick introduction and just a little bit about myself, which is quite boring. But I'm David Marr. I live in social housing in Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland. But I was born in that's me, God. My life, I was born in Dublin in the Republic of Ireland and born into social housing. And the conditions I was born into weren't bad by the standard of the day. Dublin had some very grim slums at the time, bearing in mind this was 72 years ago. And they had tenements dating back to the 1800s, to the late 1800s, modified Georgian houses that had been turned into, well, slums. And so just one room, maybe housing, well, a whole family or maybe two families. We had a 2-up, 2-down house, familiar to a lot of people in Northern Ireland and in Wales, I'm sure as well. They were just terraced. We had an outside toilet, and it was a small yard. To get to the toilet, you had to cross the yard day or night, and whatever the weather might be. We had there were 5 of us, 5 children and 2 adults. The crossing the yard was a bit of an ordeal, as you can imagine. We had no bathroom or shower, so we were dependent on going to the nearest swimming pool for your weekly wash. I did occasionally, thankfully, I did get to see what life was like in some of the tenements. In some of the worst of the tenements, it wasn't pretty. And I also got to see some upmarket homes because my mother was cleaning in a doctor's house, which was really lovely. And well, not for her, but the house was lovely. And so I got to see the other side as well at the time, something to aim for, I suppose. But overall, we were happy enough, and we got on and learned to accept what we had. I left school when I was very young, when I was 15, and I married when I was 19, and we got an apartment in Clontarf in Dublin, which is a lovely area. And we were both working, so we could manage pretty well. But when our first child was due and my wife had to give up work, that changed, and we couldn't afford the rent in the apartment. So I was 21. We had a child and effectively homeless. So there was a lot of toing and froing, and we eventually accepted a flat in the notorious Ballymun tower blocks in the suburbs of Dublin, famed in film and whatever. They have been used in a number of films about Dublin and whatever. I wouldn't like to go through it again, but it was an amazing experience in some ways, and slightly surreal in that drug dealing was just taking hold in Dublin at the time, and Ballymun was pretty much the centre of it. And it's hard to describe, but there were ponies, ponies grazing outside on the grasslands. And I do remember, they showed it in some of the films about Ballymun, horses in the apartments, actually in the lifts and stuff like that. And it's, you might think, well, that's an exaggeration, but I can assure you it was actually true. It wasn't unusual to wait on a lift and pop in and have a horse for company. But the people, the antisocial behaviour was on another level altogether, as you can imagine, given the drug dealing that was going on there. It was an interesting experience, and but we finally we were determined to get out. And we finally, well, my wife, and I have to give her all the credit because she was amazing. She managed to get us a council house in another part of Dublin in the suburbs. And but we moved in there and within a relatively short time, with help from Dublin County Council, they provided a low-cost mortgage, and we were able to buy our own 3-bedroomed house in the suburbs and so on. It was lovely, and such a change. So we had 3 children at that stage, and we were both working, so we had quite a comfortable life. But in 1991, our marriage broke up, all due to me, I have to say. Anyway, I moved to Belfast in 1992, and there I met my current wife, Heather, through work. And shortly afterwards, we bought our house together, and everything was great. We were both working. We had quite a comfortable life. We had our cars. We didn't have many holidays, but we're very family orientated. But we didn't foresee any major problems, and that was the problem. And then we were hit with the perfect storm. Heather became ill and had to have part of a lung removed. The financial crisis hit, and then the company, and this all happened at the one time in the space of like a month or two. The financial crisis hit as well, and we were just coming into that, and the company I worked for went into receivership. So it was really a nightmare, and we found ourselves with no money, and whatever money we had put aside, and it was little enough really, and that was the mistake I made. And I preach to all the grandchildren and great grandchildren now that always put money aside, but we didn't do it. So we went through money very quickly, and we eventually had to sell the house at a very big loss. I think it's painful to even think about it, but I think we lost about 130,000 on the house, which we had invested in cash after selling a previous house. Anyway, but to make matters worse, we were again, we were homeless. I managed to do that with 2 wives. It's just dawned on me, which is quite an achievement. We lived with my sister-in-law for a time, and that was obviously only very short term. And then we were offered an apartment by Choice Housing, a housing association here in Belfast. And after a few years, again, I've just noticed something here. It's my wife who made a move here. She noticed new apartments being built in Carrickfergus. I'm definitely seeing a trend here. I'm a disaster. But anyway, yeah, she noticed these apartments being built in Carrickfergus, and we applied and got a transfer. It was when she told me about it, I said to her, "You're joking," but we got the apartment, and I still have to pinch myself every day when I see what we have. If you were renting them through a private landlord, you would I mean, you would pay serious money for them. We're on the third floor in a kind of loft apartment overlooking the sea. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's through the Woven Housing Association, formerly Habentag. Anyway, to get, that leads me into where I got involved in the housing area. Kathy Crawford, our housing officer, suggested one day she was visiting and suggested that maybe I should get involved with the newsletter panel. We produce a newsletter, quarterly newsletter for tenants, and which I did. And then from that, I was offered a position on the housing policy panel, which I'll get to in a few minutes, a regional panel, and most of all, a wonderful charity supporting communities, of which I'm the chair, much to my surprise. My experience in the general welfare system was the driving force behind me becoming involved in the whole housing area. I'm just going to go slightly off script here because one of the problems that I found was that I worked all my life. I was never out of work, and both my wives did as well. And but when I found we needed to use the benefit system, it was sadly lacking. I have to say, it was. I really wouldn't want to go through the experience again. In fact, I can honestly say I wouldn't go through the experience again. It caused me very serious depression at the time, and my heart goes out to anybody who's depending on it or trying to get into it. Anyway, so we get on to supporting communities, of which I'm the chair, as I say, and we're working on so much that's positive and exciting in Northern Ireland at the moment. So I'll move on to that. I mentioned the Housing Policy Panel, of which I'm a member, and the work we're doing to influence decision making at the source, and that's the Department of Communities. The Housing Policy Panel was established in 2017 as a result of legislation on tenant participation, which called for the establishment of an independent tenant organisation to implement the actions So supporting communities won a tender for this and set about putting things in place. And that included setting up and facilitating a panel of tenants from all the housing associations in Northern Ireland to act as a consultative body to the Department of Communities. We meet on a regular basis and represent the interests of social housing tenants in the development and review of departmental policies, and to provide a voice to ensure that tenants' rights are concerned and represented and taken into account and are part of the policy making process. The current chair of the HPP is Patricia McQuillan, MBE, and she is also a tenant advocate for Northern Ireland. She's an amazing, strong voice for rural communities, and it was for this work that she, partly that and all the other work she does. She's a frightening amount of work on her plate, but and it's for that work that she received her royal recognition. That was the MBE that I mentioned. The Northern Ireland government is currently consulting on its plans, and there are some very encouraging things being discussed. We're particularly pleased to see more social, affordable and sustainable housing as one of the government's 9 priorities. We look forward to learning more about the details and the funding behind this goal. In June of last year, Patricia McQuillan, who I just mentioned as tenant advocate, and several HPP members, including myself, paid a visit to Parliament buildings at Stormont to meet with an all-party group on housing. Both Patricia and I spoke mainly about the importance of having a representative on the tenants' voice. There we are there in Stormont. Having a representative, about the importance of having a representative of the tenants' voice at the table where decisions that affect them are being made. and this is by way of laying the groundwork for our kiosks. The HPP, the Housing Policy Panel, has written its own manifesto for government, and if you're interested, you can read it on the Supporting Communities website. And we've been meeting with the all-party working group on housing to voice our priorities also. The key asks that we have are that we finish what we started by implementing the update to the tenant participation in 2015-2020, build more social housing to meet the needs of people in rural and urban areas, raise the standard of tenant participation by all tenants by endorsing the TP standards and accreditation scheme that Supporting Communities provide. We want to go international, and this is the first chance, I suppose, we have to do it today. We want to link up with a counterpart group in the Republic of Ireland and to look at housing from an all-Ireland perspective, share best practice with them and learn from one another, which makes a lot of sense. I've just mentioned the TP standards, and I would like to share the good news that Supporting Communities awarded Radius Housing Association the first gold level accreditation this summer. As the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats, and this achievement will undoubtedly raise the bar for everyone in social housing and hopefully benefit tenants across the island of Ireland. Radius Housing clearly recognised the value of this accreditation. This is their second. They've gone from silver to gold in just 3 years. We're lobbying our housing regulator to consider adopting it as part of the evaluation of housing providers. We're nearly there. Supporting Communities is working on a second All-Ireland Tenant Engagement Conference to be held in 2025. The first was held last year, 2023, and was a tremendous success. I was there. That wasn't why it was a success, by the way, but it was really fantastic to meet everybody from around the island of Ireland and just exchange moans and groans, and a lot of positive stuff came out of it as well. So it was tenants from all over Ireland and even further afield. I think we had somebody there from Scotland as well, and I'm not sure where else. It was the only thing about it. There were so many people there; it was impossible to get around everybody. There were, I don't know how many, a few hundred. So I would maybe be nicer to do it over a couple of days, but there you go. We hope the second conference next year will be an even bigger affair. Well, there you go. That kind of answers that question. So keep an eye out for updates. Maybe it would be nice to see some of you there. Who knows? So I would like, before I go, that's me finished, and nobody is more grateful than me, I can tell you. I'm as nervous as a kitten. I would like to thank Keely, who looked after the slides there, and in fact provided most of the information here. I made her life hell, I'd say, over the last week. She was worrying, I think, about how I'd get on, but not as much as I was worrying.
Dave. That was great.
Not as much as I was worrying about how I'd get on, let me tell you. Yeah. So that's it, really. Look at my face. I'm generating enough power here to run a small town. Anyway, Slán go fóill, Howell Fa. Have I got that right? Zbogum. Have I got that right, Maja? Adjo. I'm not sure, Carl, if I've insulted you with that. And goodbye from me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. I think there was some wonderful humour in that, and I did enjoy it. Thank you. And I will try and make next conference, if I get an invite from Colin, I will try and get over there for it. So I'm conscious, Maya, you've got to go, haven't you? Are you okay, or are you leaving? We made a mix-up on time zones. My fault completely, because, it's like British, we're always like, why wouldn't the world center around us? Why would there be any other time zones in the world? And through no fault of her faults. There was a mix-up in time, so I apologize if you've got to go.
No, no worries, no worries. I asked to move a bit the next meeting, but I was like going through my calendar not to be late, but it's
No
okay.
problem. If you do need to go to, so maybe if you've Amanda's asked a question in the crowd to all three of you. I might go. Is sorry, I've just lost Amanda's question. It's just gone out of screen. What would you say your next steps are for your organization in the near future or your longer term goals? Um, I'm going to go to Carl Johan because I would hope that you have a clearer view of your next or your goals and your things like that. Or Maya, I don't know if you've got time or if you literally are going to disappear. Do you want to go first then? Yeah, sorry.
Well, our next goal, we've gotten far, but the question of how well you live in your apartment or in your area, that's it demands a lot to try to visit every house or every area. But we try to do it, and we try to do it through our elected members, and it's quite easy still as a not so great landlord to just along with the flow, and you get a rent that you maybe not deserve. So try to get up the quality of how apartments and houses are being managed. It's a big yeah, it's a big step to be better in that area, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So could rents go down then? Sorry. So could rents go down if a landlord doesn't keep their place in repair?
Technically, they could, but we it's not the first thing we do. We try to first get up the quality of how you manage your house. But if you really don't do it, you could both the rights the laws that we have. You could both have rent decrease. You could also, if you own your house, but the state or the city can take the management of the house from you. So,
Yeah.
so you keep owning the house, but you don't get the income and you don't get to decide what's supposed to do with your house. So that's one of the resources we have that we can and we can do it without uh, permission from the tenants. We almost always have it, but we as an free organization can act if a house
Okay.
is really neglected and step in like that.
Wow. Okay. Um, Maya, I'm guessing your answer will be a bit different because you're on a
Yeah.
start in your journey. What are your
Yes.
goals for the moment? So yeah.
Yeah, we our goals for the moment is to focus to we already building the strategy how to address the legal lease agreements and to fight for the model for especially for youth to have subsidiaries from the state when it comes to the rent and for them to take we because we built one a calculator for a fair rental price to take a methodology for rental market, regulating rental market prices, for us to accept these recommendations that we have because they are done by experts. So we are going to push more now in the next period with the government institutions, with stakeholders, and be more visible and loud. This is also what is our partnership with the Swedish Union of Tenants. We're going to create all the materials and give them a plate. So and engage them in the working groups and slowly start the process because it's really not easy to change something that has been doing for a very long time. But we have built the strategy is built and we're going to focus on uh, one side it's campaign big campaign and the other side is working with them directly with the government institutions and also engaging more tenants. We are planning to go with more cities from 2020 early 2025 and establish partnerships in different cities. We cannot open branches for now because it's we are very small, but we did partnered with few cities and we are going to continue so they will have our program within the organization. It will be our base there. So we at least we can save 15 for next year. So this will be increasing our members, visibility, and impact. So this is where we're heading now at the moment.
Wow, it does sound interesting. It's an interesting time, and I'm glad the Swedish Union of Tenants are helping you, are supporting you, sorry, with that. Dave and Healy, Dave, is there anything you'd like to say about what the objectives are for the next year or so, or longer term? You're on mute, mate.
Go. Yeah, there's a huge mismatch at the moment between in Northern Ireland and in the Republic indeed, but very much in Northern Ireland between the numbers of people on the housing list and the quantity of houses being built, social houses that are being built. I mean, at the rate we're going, would be that gap will never close. Even at the best projections, it will never close. We're only scraping the surface. So serious amount of funding will have to go into social housing, I think. And the other problem is that apart from the figures rising, the people requiring social housing are rising anyway, but they're rising at an even quicker level now, because people who would maybe traditionally have bought their own houses can't afford them because house prices are so high. So they can't afford them. So people who are maybe both like husband and wife, say, or whatever, working, both partners, I should say, working, they can't afford a property. So they're going on the housing list. So the housing list is growing at a greater rate than ever, and less money is being spent on social housing. So it's to try and I say one of our main objectives would be to try and pressure the government. How successful that will be, I'm not sure. Everybody is short of money, but that really is a big problem for us. I'm not sure if Healy, sorry, I cut across you there, Healy, maybe.
No, no, that's absolutely it. Like, the sheer numbers are a real issue. I mean, for supporting communities as an organization, I mean, you already touched on a few of our goals, which are, shared by the Housing Policy Panel, which is to, put tenant participation front and center of anything that happens in housing, so we're really pushing for a revised tenant participation strategy. The last one was a really big deal that we got it in the first place, and supporting communities was quite instrumental in making sure that happened, but it's well out of date now, and it needs an update, and it's been put on the back burner due to a lack of resources. So we're seeing the theme across the thing here is that money, but it's something that's largely done and could be implemented, but somebody needs to just make it happen. So we're actively pushing on that. And the other thing, of course, is the tenant participation accreditation. See, Lisa, who won your prize, she was the gold TP award winner there. So she can tell you how important that work is, and getting all of the different housing associations on board to kind of undertake that self-reflection and do that work that's involved in understanding how tenant participation improves their business, as well as everything across the board for tenants and the staff as well. So we're really hoping that can become a thing that's really embedded in Northern Ireland and in the South as well.
Good, excellent. You've been a bit quiet today, crowd. Any more questions on the side? Or anyone put a hand up if they don't want to type? Come on, Mel Rayner, you usually help me out on this.
I was really interesting listening to Dave, because I had very similar circumstances of two ex-wives and ending up homeless as a result. And this isn't a question, just a comment. I can remember in 1973 visiting Carrickfergus at a very interesting time in the history of Northern Ireland. And no, I wasn't in the army before you asked.
You weren't booting down the door then, Mel, were you?
Sorry?
You weren't booting down the door.
No. I worked for C&A, if you remember them, the clothes shop.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing applicants for a job in Carrickfergus. For some reason, we were thinking of opening a branch there, but it never happened. But, yeah.
So, oops, Mel. I've cut you off by accident. I really didn't mean to do that. I was
I
actually trying to
don't
pin
blame
you.
you.
I was trying to pin you.
You're
Sorry.
normally trying to get rid of me,
Yeah,
Dave.
I was sorry. It's the wrong button there. Sorry. Um,
Um,
sorry.
but
Continue.
yeah, really interesting listening to all of you. And I really wish no disrespect to TPAS, but I really wish we had what you've got going on in Sweden here. And I'm sure you do as well, Maya. And full marks to you for what the work you are putting into this. I, I, uh, I'm with a landlord that was very into tenant engagement up until 3 years ago, and then just basically scrapped the lot and don't listen really to tenants now. But interestingly, about 4 years ago, at that time I was on the board of the landlord, I suggested to them that they set up a community group on Facebook. And wow, they've actually done it today.
4 years on.
And
Yeah.
and I noticed you were one of the first on there, David.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always going to keep an eye on these things. I have to keep an eye
Yeah.
on whatever anyone's doing.
Well,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
took them about an hour and a half to accept me onto the group. I thought, no, they're not going to have me
Yeah.
because they know
Yeah.
what sort of things I'm liable to say.
And I think, well, there's an interesting point there. I don't disagree that the private rental sector in Wales desperately needs a tenant union, needs a tenant voice like they've been setting up in North Macedonia or is established in Sweden. I think the private rental sector is very badly served in Wales in terms of tenant voice. But yeah, we'll see where that conversation goes within Wales. Um, I've got an anonymous question here to the three of you. Um, how much homelessness is there? And are you able to support them via your organization? Does that make sense? Is is the homelessness a key part of your work? Or I don't know if you want to go first, Maya, because I'm conscious of your time. Don't want to put you on the spot, but I can't hear you,
In
sorry.
yeah, in North Macedonia, and uh, directly we don't. Their association doesn't have capacity to give services, but there is shelters, and I'm a social worker. I work directly with homeless people, so there is the Red Cross working and trying to organize it systematically, this issue. But they are giving them shelter, temporary homes, and they also have built, there is a gap in the system when it comes to social housing, and the criteria is very, if I may say, rigid when people apply, and they have problems. Even they are in the need of apartment, they will still be in the waiting list or be rejected when it comes to social apartment. But most of the homeless people are taken care by the Red Cross
Yeah.
or the social center in the municipality. It's
Okay.
involved.
Okay. Um, Carl Johan, how would you describe the homelessness situation where you are, and what support can you offer?
Well, I'm probably not the right
Right.
person or the best person, but there is an increased amount of homelessness in Sweden, and although we don't have social housing, we have social apartments. So of course the cities try to try to get some kind of housing,
Mm. Yeah.
but also there's lack of housing.
Mm.
And what we do is of course lobby
Mm.
to housing as a human right. Uh, but that's a short and not very deep answer to that question.
And I'm guessing, thank you for that. I think Dave is probably similar to Wales, isn't it? We just have too many people on the waiting list compared to homes at the moment. So the use of B&Bs, temporary accommodation, things like this is a constant battle, isn't it? Yeah. Would
You
you
must
agree,
have
Dave?
read what I was typing, David, because I've just pretty much put that in the chat.
Sorry?
You must have read what I was typing because I
Oh, right. Oh,
put that in the chat before you even started
we've
speaking.
been on the same thinking for a while now, Mel. So thank you for that. Yes, yeah. Right, I've got one more question from Emma Nicholas, and she said, I don't know if it was aimed at a particular person, Emma. Do you want to? Was it aimed at one of the speakers? But how do you split any distrust with tenants from previous government policies that have let them down? And I'm not sure what that question is, Emma. Do you want to? Are you still there?
Yeah, it's like for all of them really. Do you know
Hmm.
like when previously in previous policies and things have let people down, what makes them trust these organisations? What makes you different from the government? Why should they trust you?
Good question. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, I'm going to go with. I go reverse time round. Dave, do you want to go first? Shall I put you on the spot?
Yeah, thanks for that, David. Um, yeah, it's a very good question, and I suppose as a well, is any organisation independent when you're getting funds from government, local government or whatever? But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer. I really don't have an answer to that. Actually, as a tenant myself, when I hear promises being made, I must say I look for the nearest grain of salt, and so yeah, I can only hope that our actions speak for themselves, and we do provide and help groups with funding who would help homeless people and so on. Going back to the other question about homelessness, and it is a serious problem, in a lot of places, but in Belfast and down south in Dublin as well, it's not unusual to see. Down along the canals in Dublin, they're lined with people living in tents, tent cities, and have to. I really don't know. People have to be kinder. It's really heartbreaking to hear people complaining about immigrants and everything else, forgetting about all our histories, which have included immigration in some form or emigration in some form or another. So, yeah, I think we live in hope, and that's as much as I can say on that.
Yeah. Maya, how do you're obviously a new organization and you're setting yourself up and you want people to trust you compared to their trust maybe in the government or and things like that. How have you found it? Yeah.
Very low towards the government because we see many governments come and didn't improve the living conditions so much. So the people are disappointed then, but the civil sector in my country particular is very strong, the civil sector. There are a lot of organizations that are they are very strong and they are depending what they are working on. But when it comes to us, I think at the beginning they could not trust us because they said who you are, what, and they started to come to our meetings and they start to open. They see what we are doing. They see the honest approach. We also give free legal support, and we had several activities that were beyond our capabilities, if I may say. We helped two families improve their living conditions. These were family in social risk, and they were living in a very bad conditions. 33 square meter, a five-member family, and one of the kids was a teenage girl who was amazing mathematic, and she didn't have any conditions to learn to study, and we helped transform the basement room into a place where you can live, sleep, work, and it's an amazing story how because we contact our contacts companies and they all gave whatever they could and we managed to finalize the process. And at another place, also social apartment, we help with renovation inside. There was a bit like very bad conditions, so this institution that is managing social apartments has 60,000 euros per year for maintenance and renovation, which is so little, and they have just extreme priority.
Yeah.
So this trust built is not, you have to earn it. You have to earn
Yes.
it, but you're really putting yourself. But I think they, when they see that we are working really to help, we have a lot of trust, and it doesn't come overnight. It
No.
takes, I think, time. But I think the trust in the government is very low. Not the new one, the previous one, because it's
Yeah.
hasn't
Governments
changed
come
a
and
lot.
go, they're all the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Carl Johan, I'm guessing you've been around for 100 years. So there must be an element of trust in your organization.
Well, there is, and we try to, of course, be really careful to maintain that trust. Also, we have a slightly rising. I don't know if trustability is the word, but it's rising when these things are examined. There was also just to. We have a lot of challenges, and so we're not perfect, but we are strong, and we are. Uh, it was really close that they passed a law that newly built houses were to be exempt from the negotiation system and free rent, free market rent. But when we stepped in, the government fell over that legislation. So
Wow.
that's the kind of we don't take it for granted. We don't know it will happen tomorrow also, but recently it has been that way. So yeah, we have quite large trust. Um,
That's a great quote for International Tenants Day, that the tenant organization helped bring down a government.
I don't think
Which,
so. I don't know if we should speak too much about it.
no, sorry, but yeah, power to the tenants, isn't it? Brilliant. I'm just conscious of time now. Emma, I'm not going to use yours now, only because I think we're going to run something soon. Emma was asking about some of the utility value system, and I think it's something we'd like to follow up with you, Carl Johan. We're going to look at rent models quite a bit over the next couple of months in Wales here, about different models, different ways. I interviewed somebody last Friday who's a leading thinker on rent models. And so we're just cutting that. It was quite a long interview. We're just cutting that up, and we're going to be running some events. We would love to get people involved in how else do we set rents? How else do we do models, link them to energy efficiency or location? Or is that wrong? There's a number of ways of doing that. So I think rather than trying to start that in the last dying minutes, I think we'll lead that onto another event. That's okay, Emma. And I will let you know when that's available. I think we've got some stuff there. I guess I just want to open it up now to anybody else, which is we this is our first event. Yona will send you an email. I know all of you will ignore it, and it'll have a please give us your feedback, and none of you will do it because I see the figures every week. And I have the worst ratings in TPAS for people filling out feedback forms. I get shamed in meetings. So please, this time, if you think this has been good, please give us some feedback on it. If you don't, please give us feedback as well. I know we'd like to partner with people and do more of this, have more European, maybe international conversations, especially around International Tenant Day. Um, so if that's something you'd like to see more of, please let us know, and we might collaborate with some of the different organisations. I'd like to say a big thank you to our speakers. They came out instantly from when we went via Dan. They put their hands up and came. This is back in June, probably was it July? I can't remember what it was now. And they were like, "Yeah, we'll speak." And I really appreciate, as I say, Carl Johan from Sweden, Maya from North Macedonia, Dave from Northern Ireland with great humour there. Thank you to the three speakers. I really appreciate it. And I hope we will do more. And if we can be of any help to other organisations in terms of what we do here in Wales, we'd be very great, pleased to and happy to support in any way. Can I say thank you to all the speakers, and hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you. And come back at 3 o'clock if you've seen that link. We might send it out in time for an announcement. It's just a 3-minute announcement on YouTube, but I think it's linked to International Tenants Day and Tenant Voice. So please do come back for that. And thank you. International Tenants Day. Let's keep it going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.